And welcome to the latest live episode of the Wolves Report. Tonight we'll be discussing the West Ham game, giving that a little review, talk about Ipswich, the match and player analysis, take some of your questions and look ahead to next week's game against Tottenham Hotspur. Bit of a podcast crossover this evening, making his debut on the Wolves Report. I am delighted to welcome Dave Azopardi to get his first cap on the Wolves Report this evening. As you've probably seen from the credits, Nocky was supposed to be with us as well. Unfortunately, Nocky isn't very well, whether he's suffering from a hangover from celebrating at Ipswich, self-inflicted, or he's just not very well. Either way, get well soon, Nocky. Hope you have you on that best, feeling best soon. Dave, thanks for joining us. Let's get straight to business. Tuesday night, a hard-fought victory against West Ham United. Love to get your take on Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, West Ham United now.
Yeah, thanks for having me, firstly, mate. Yeah, looking forward to it. Tuesday was a good win for Wolves. I felt a lot more pressure, weirdly, going into yesterday's game, which obviously we'll talk about. But yeah, Tuesday was a nice win. I don't think we've witnessed or experienced enough wins at Molineux this season. Obviously, it's got a lot better under Vitor. But yeah, like you said, hard fought. It wasn't a classic by any stretch of the imagination. Quite a scrappy game. I don't think it'll be particularly memorable, but took our opportunity when we got it. Thought West Ham struggled to create enough of their own clear-cut opportunities. I think if you looked at the stats beforehand, before the game, under Graham Potter, they've actually been struggling to create those chances. I think they were averaging about 2 shots on target every match. I think they only got 1 at Molineux, actually. And then all their main chances seem to be from our mistakes. I think Totti, and I think he realised, and Vitor made comments about it after the game, probably overplayed at times. But overall, we got the job done. And I think without Cunha, who I'm sure will be the topic of a lot of subjects on this podcast, I don't think it was ever going to be an attractive, free-flowing attacking Wolverhampton Wanderers. It was a squad of 11 players that Vitor knows are going to work hard to get the job done. And ultimately, since the start of Mateus's suspension, we've done exactly that. So yeah, Tuesday, hard fought and a solid and much-needed 3 points at the time.
I've got to say, Dave, I know I said he wasn't particularly spectacular, but what impressed me the most was the measured press, particularly in the first half. And I know Marshall Monetti he's very much a Marmite footballer for some people, and I understand that. But I thought the way the Wolves didn't let I think there was one error in the first half when sort of Totti was sort of dispossessed with the bad pass.
Yeah.
Other than that, it was a pretty much dominant half from Wolves. But the way they pressed as a team, not just one guy going here and there, but a measured press, Strand Larsen put a massive shift in. Monetti, incredible shift, backed up with the centre midfielders. The whole team, it was a proper team performance. But for me, I'll go as far as saying, I think that's the best I've seen Wolves press as far as I can remember.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the main things. To be fair, I think under Gary O'Neill, we tried to play that high press, press the back four of the opposition and press the goalkeeper. And I think when Vitor had come in, he wanted to continue that. But it was pretty obvious that, Andre and João Gomez are your sort of holding players. And then other than that, Cunha at the time didn't really tend to do much, work. Jorgen looked to be quite tired. And then whoever else was playing there, we didn't really have any consistency in that other forward line. So I think that's why he made quite an effort to get someone in quite athletic, a bit more of a presence, i.e. in Monetti. And I think that's worked perfectly. And he made comments about it after the Ipswich game yesterday, exactly why he brought Marshall Monetti in, because he seems to be getting the best out of other players. It's not all about what Marshall Monetti does with the ball. It's a lot of it is what he does off the ball and his pressing, his energy from minute 1 to minute 90. And I think that's rubbing off on Jorgen as well, because like you said, the press and the work rate that we seem to be getting off Bellegarde, Jorgen Strand Larsen, we haven't seen that enough this season. And over the last few weeks, we're starting to see it a lot more. And obviously we're getting the results, which we fully deserve as well. Yeah,
we just look like a team again. I felt like we haven't had that. We haven't had our team. We've had results here and there. And I don't mean this disrespectfully to Cunha, even though obviously I'm not particularly impressed with, and I don't think many people are, with his behaviour at Bournemouth. But we just look a slick unit. Everyone knows what they're doing. They're all playing for each other. There's no give it to Cunha and see what happens. Granted, if Cunha's in the team, I'm going to pass him the ball because of the things he can do. He's a magical footballer.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a real team ethic going in both directions, and it's a joy to see.
Yeah, it's now that everybody wants to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, and that's look. We'll have a debate, I'm sure, about Cunha later on, but I think that's what concerned me and frustrated me with his comments pre-West Ham. because I felt that came out at such an awkward time. The club, obviously, we had a conversation about it. It was obvious the club wouldn't have sanctioned an interview like that, so it was done on international duty. And the comments were that Wolves are pretty much safe. I just felt even this time last week we weren't safe, because if we dropped points or lost yesterday to Ipswich, it might have only been a 3-point gap. And all of a sudden, I think this podcast would have been a hell of a lot different. So I just felt those comments were unneeded. And I look yesterday at the 11 players that started, or, your 14, 15 players that played full stop. None of them have kicked up a fuss. They've all just wanted to get their head down and play for this football team. And you see yesterday, how often would Wolves have gone 1-0 down, at teams like Ipswich, and completely crumbled and not being able to get themselves back in the game? It was a completely different show yesterday, and it was enjoyable to watch as well. That just having 11 men that want to play for the badge on the front of the shirt rather than their name on the back of the shirt.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it just feels so nice. It's like, I'm not going to say it's particularly enjoyable watching Wolves, but they are so efficient at the moment. There's almost more pride than enjoyment. And at the end of that West Ham game, about 2 minutes to go, when the whole bench are celebrating Manetti's run and he's absolutely exhausted. Yeah. who has ever got the Billy? No disrespect to anyone in the Billy Wright. Who has ever got the Billy Wright stand like that? And that was a special. It's giving me goosebumps now. It's ridiculous. I'm 45 years old. I've got goosebumps in my arms from talking about a guy running his heart out, the manager and the assistant just pumping. But that's all we want, isn't it? And if you can do that and get those basics. I mean, he's very much about the team and being together and doing everything, and the changes he's made, everyone eating breakfast together and all staying over together. I think these things, the little things like that, are important. And again, Dave, we just look like so together, and no disrespect to Gary O'Neill or anyone before that, but this looks like the most together this group's been.
I think the main word you used there was basics, and I think that's completely right. I think under Gary O'Neill, I think he had the right intentions, but everything was almost overthought in terms of the analytical side of the games. And I think Johnny Phillips put on his article last week about that, saying that Vitor, of course, there is still going to be an element of analysis that he does week on week, but it's definitely not as sort of, as intricate as Gary O'Neill was literally breaking everything down on the iPad or whatever. Vitor knows these are professional footballers. They will make mistakes, and they've got to learn from their mistakes. And it just shows with Vitor, he's an experienced manager. Whether he's won games, he's lost games, he's won trophies. Yes, it was a long time ago, but he'll know a lot more about how to win football matches than I think the likes of Gary O'Neill would. I think Julian Lopetegui obviously came in with a good manager, but I think it was all about him. It was the Lopetegui show. And then under Bruno Lage, I think sort of similar to Gary O'Neill, just tried to overthink things and probably wasn't a people's person. And when Wolves are down there and struggling, you need someone that can talk to the players, be a people's person, get the best out of a squad. Because I think, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but everybody watching this podcast now could have said at the start of the season, individually, Wolves should not be in the position that they're in. And I think, no disrespect to teams like, like Bournemouth or even Nottingham Forest, I think player for player, Wolves aren't a million miles away from where they are. But what they're doing, they're well drilled and they're doing the basics right. And Wolves just haven't done that this season. So it's no surprise that all of a sudden we get someone in who's capable and just getting the right things in place that, we're starting to gain points and get ourselves out of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler's been talking about that for a while in terms of the squad and what it's capable of. But if they're not performing and the manager's not performing, because we did look like a team of individuals, and just going back to what you said, a really good point about Gary O'Neill. I think Gary O'Neill's a fantastic tactician. Unfortunately, if you're offering a different message every single week, there's going to be no consistency. If you're trying, I mean, there's overthinking football, and I love numbers and I love XG and all the stats. I could read that stuff all day long. But there comes to a point where if you're changing and tweaking every single week, it's impossible for those players to get into a rhythm and the harmony. And I just feel like he did overcomplicate it. You know what? It was only his second job. He did what he did at the time. For a reasonable amount of time, he did okay. But then he got found out. But this feels, like you said now, the basics. Things have been simplified. There's a manager that's involving himself in the city. He's out last night. Someone said he's in Pop World as well.
I mean, that as well.
he's do you know what though? He's come all that way and he's gone into town for a beer. Like I said to you off air, I had a couple of beers last night. I'm sure you did as well. We're enjoying our football team again. And when the manager He's involving himself in the city. I know Nuno wasn't much of a going out in the city, but he was more of a going and run through the city. He got the players involved with the city. Now, this manager's doing the same. So long may it continue. If the season had started when Vitor Pereira took over, we're having a conversation about Europe now, which is ridiculous considering 2 months ago, we're very much flirting with relegation. So, yeah, long may it continue. You are listening and watching episode 126 of the Wolves Report. We're talking Wolves founder and host Dave Azzopardi and myself, Ryan Lester, talking about Wolves 1-0 against West Ham. Dave, let's talk about the goal in that game. It was comically funny in the week that Bully obviously told Strand Larsen to shoot more. I agree, but I don't think that's his fault. I think Wolves don't create a lot for him, but I mean, he dug one out with his left foot. He's took a little flick, but you take your chances. Again, what I really liked about this goal, was Agbadou has the ability to side foot a ball like a bullet. And the way he pinged that through about 4 or 5 players, again, Manetzi was there in the way, organised chaos, ball falls for him, 1-0 Wolves.
Yeah, exactly that. And I agree with Strand Larsen. I felt for him a lot. It was mainly after that, I can't think it was the FA Cup game or the league game against Bournemouth, and he picked up a lot of stick. Because I think, again, the last few weeks, we've been playing with Jean-Ric de Bellegarde and Manetzi, and all three of them have done a lot more running. They've supported each other, got closer to each other a lot more. And with Cunha in the squad, unbelievable talent, don't get me wrong, but at times the front three can look a little bit disjointed, and I think Jurgen can at times look very isolated. And it's no surprise over the last few weeks, we've started to see the best out of him because we've got players around him. We're giving him the ball in the right sort of areas. Like, we'll come on to the Ipswich game, but yesterday was perfect. You know, proper striker's finish, right place, right time. You get the creativity, put it into the area, and he'll put it into the back of the net. But yeah, you're right. I think, you know, given the ball, I think we need more shots on goal. There's sometimes where I think we look a little bit goal shy and we don't test goalkeepers enough. So things like that, you know, you buy your ticket and you might win the lottery, and that's exactly what he's done there, I think, on Tuesday. I think Areola will probably be a little bit disappointed that he let it in, but ultimately, you know, we took our chance, and that's what won us the game.
Absolutely, and you're right. You don't shoot, you don't score, you don't buy a ticket, you're never going to win the prize. On that sort of subject, but slightly different, one other thing that does annoy me, it didn't happen as much yesterday, but the amount of times Wolves get into wide areas with one of the wing backs, and you think, get it in there first time, because Strand Larsen, he's a very good penalty spot to box player. He can head it. He's very good at sort of them flick finishes. I don't think we feed him enough. Yesterday, we did that a bit better, but recently, before, in some of the games, I just find it frustrating that you'll get Aït-Nouri on the ball, you'll get Nelson or Doc's overlapping, and it ends up going back to one of the centre-backs. I understand that they're under instruction, but sometimes I just think, football's become quite sanitised like that now. It's keep possession. But if you go from back to front quickly, you give a team less time to set, and I think a lot of teams are guilty of that, not just Wolves.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think a lot of it is normally to do with team instruction as well. I think it might be a bit different if you add Manetzi into the mix, because all of a sudden you've got someone who's, you know, a much bigger physical guy alongside Strand Larsen. So you've got two big boys really to aim for. And I know during his time in France, Manetzi's he actually scored quite a few headers, and I'm hoping we'll start to see him get on the score sheet.
He's been unlucky in the last few games. He gets inside. Honestly, Dave, I'm still trying to work him out, but I've never seen somebody that plays in that position getting so many goal scoring opportunities. He's got to be a smart man, or his football intelligence must be off the chart, because he finds him there, and that's not, you can't really teach that talent. You've either got it or you haven't. And the way he finds himself in them positions, I'm confident more goals will come.
He could have had two on Tuesday, and I know it's if buts, maybes, but I think that the one in the first half, an unbelievable run from João Gomez.
Would have been a great goal.
Manetzi's in the right place. I know it sounds daft, and it's probably a stupid comment for me to make, but if that's like, well, I don't know, an inch lower and it hits it off the underside of the bar and in, that is just one unbelievable finish. And I think that's so unlucky. And even the chance right at the death there, I don't think his connection with the shot is particularly great. But if you actually watch the full move, the intelligence of his run and the work rate and the energy that he has to put in, bearing in mind he's played from minute 1 to minute 92, 93, whenever that was, and he's really, really unlucky. I think Jurgen could have nicked it in and, you know, slid in to maybe make it 2-0 at that point. I don't know if he was hoping that it would creep into Marshall Manetzi got the goal. I don't know, but it's promising signs for a player to get into those sort of areas, and it might just click. And there might be one game he scores 1 or 2, and then the next week he might it might click again and he scores again. Like, I think genuinely, you got Jorgen Strand Larsen, Cunha on 10 plus goals. If you can have players like that get into the right positions and start nicking you 6 or 7 goals a season, that's a really, really nice trait and a nice player to have in your squad. And I'm sure we'll have loads of questions, and I'm sure it's going to be a topic of discussion later on to whether he keeps his place next week as well.
Just finishing off on the second half of the West Ham game, probably not quite the intensity. It was more of a have what you hold, do what's necessary. And I say this, and I genuinely mean it. I don't think West Ham created an opportunity of their own doing. I think everything they did was mainly through mistakes through our defence, mainly Totti. You had one of those games, but clean sheet. Not Wolves won yesterday, so we can't really moan. But defensively, I think Wolves, considering obviously the likes of Bowen, Evan Ferguson, who's a player, what they did to that team to restrict them for when they had the ball, I thought even when Totti was on Bowen, when he was running down the wing, he didn't really skin him. It was just his own feet got him in trouble when we were in possession. Yeah.
No, like I said earlier, I don't think West Ham had been particularly great going forward anyway since Potter's come in. I think they've been a little bit unlucky, obviously, with Antonio's injury, and they've brought Evan Ferguson in, who hadn't actually played a hell of a lot of football beforehand. And I've no doubt he's a good footballer. I do think he's a little bit overhyped, maybe. But saying that, when you're 1-0 up and you're sort of desperate for points, naturally you're going to sit deeper, and naturally West Ham are going to come at us a little bit more and create chances. But the fact that we restricted them to create so little of their own opportunities, and I think with a little bit more energy, we could have killed the game off. Minetti was unlucky in the first half. He was unlucky at the death as well. But there were times where we caught West Ham on the break and we just looked a little bit tired and just lacked that little bit of bite going forward sometimes. But that's one thing I've got confidence in under Vitor. Whenever we seem to be ahead or in a game, we seem to see it out. Whereas under previous managers, we seem to be throwing things away. So it just seems to be a very professional performance week after week recently, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. I did really enjoy the atmosphere on Wednesday as well. I know Molyneux, since post-COVID and the European football, it's sort of lacked its spark. And I always say this, and it sounds over-aggressive, but I like Molyneux when it's horrible. I like it when, and it almost like when you've got a pantomime villain like Matheus Nunes, when you've got someone like that, and it's going Molyneux. I don't know about you, Dave, but Man United at home in the FA Cup quarterfinal, I don't think I've ever heard anything like that. That was incredible. And this feels to me like the kind of manager that can recreate those moments.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I agree. Wednesday was brilliant. And then when you've, like we mentioned earlier, when you've got the head coach and his assistant, waving the arms in the air. Like, I've seen the head coach be a little bit, erratic sometimes, but an assistant, I don't know, Ryan, if you've ever seen an assistant get involved
and
like that, it was absolutely brilliant. But like you said, I was on the other end of the South Bank and I loved it, man. It was fantastic. And then obviously he got booked for it, and then they both got the touchline ban in the end. But it was brilliant, and they just all seem up for it. Both crazy guys, but I think it's going to be one of those. I think next season, if other teams clock onto that, they're going to be like a real Marmite duo. They are. You're either going to love them or hate them. I think they'll really wind opposition fans up. But I don't know. I think he seems, Lopetegui, you did get that at times, but I think he seemed at times quite disrespectful to the opposition dugout. Whereas Vitor at the moment, we've not really seen that from him. But I do expect maybe over the next 12 months, it'll be interesting to see how opposition managers react to those sort of reactions.
I think football, Dave, as a whole, again, this is something I've spoken to about Tyler and Nocky about, but I don't think there's enough characters now. I think people doing that kind of thing. This is an entertainment sport. We both do our own podcasts. We love our football team. We talked off air. It can make or break your weekend. It's ridiculous, but it can, and it can make your breakfast, your cup of coffee taste sweeter on a Monday morning. You realise you've travelled the other end of the country for absolutely no reason whatsoever one week, then the next. We love our football team, and when it's going well, it's absolutely fine. And these guys get that. So if they want to be characters and winding people up, I'm all for it. We need that. And if it helps Molyneux, like if it takes Marshall Monetti busting the gut and rolling on the floor knackered, and then everyone's celebrating, I'm good for that. And there's one other thing, Dave, just to get your quick opinion on this. How do you feel about Lebanon players celebrating tackles?
Man, I love that as well. It's at the end of the day, to be a bit of a Roy Keane, that's their job, isn't it? You know, that's to win win the tackles. And, you know, I don't know. I love it. It's part of that. I've never sort of watched the TV and think, what is he celebrating there? I've loved it, to be fair. So, and it's just nice. Like I said earlier, it's nice to have players on that football pitch that care. You know, the least a player in a Wolves shirt can do is give me 100%. And those players are giving it and more at the moment. So if they can continue doing that, they can celebrate, they can do whatever they want. I'll celebrate a corner like there's a goal, you know. So, yeah, long may it continue.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it started with the South American players. I think it started with Bruno and Joe Linton a lot in the Premier League, Newcastle. And when they did it, St James's went wild. And I was like, I wouldn't mind a little bit of that myself. And now Andre does it. I know Joe Gomez does it. And I'm all for it. If it helps the atmosphere and pumps their teammates up and pumps the crowd up, long may it continue. Let's move on to Saturday's game. We're Sunday night, and we forget where we are having that much fun. It ended Ipswich Town 1, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, 12 points clear, superior of goal difference. It would take a monumental effort from Ipswich and a mega collapse from Wolves. I'm pretty confident in saying Wolves are safe now, but I'd love to get your take on Wolves' win against them, their tractor boys.
I mean, you say that about us pre-match being, you know, in a great position. I don't think I've been, I don't know what, as nervous for a football match in a long, long time. I posted a screenshot and I checked it out again today. I wear like this little Fitbit and I checked the heart rate.
I think I saw it. Did you post that? Yeah.
Yeah. I looked at it again yesterday, like this morning, because you can see it's like fairly steady at 3 o'clock till about 5. It's like ridiculous. And then it just drops off again. I'll get it up. I'll put it on the camera in a second, but it's, I don't know why. I was so worked up about that football match. And like I said, I think even if we'd lost yesterday, Wolves would have been in an okay position. I just don't think I could have dealt with the sort of all uncertainty on social media or the pressure going into the next couple of weeks of games. Because say for argument's sake, you drop points against Spurs, all of a sudden you've got to beat Leicester, you know, at home. You know, I didn't want that. But the game overall, I think, you know, first half, I don't think we were dreadful first half. Like I said, you know, as has been the case over the last few weeks, we restricted the opposition to very few clear-cut opportunities. Unfortunately for us, we had one lapse in concentration and that caused us to concede the goal. But the rest of the first half was okay. But second half, we really turned it on. My concern going into this game, and I don't know what you thought about it going in, was weirdly that Vitor wasn't going to be on the touchline. And I always think, like, how much of an impact is that going to have, especially not without the assistant as well. I think he's one of the analysts that were saying that, you know,
that's incredible,
sort of on the touchline. And that was actually a concern for me. But, you know, second half, it looked like we were playing against 10 men because we were so much better than Ipswich. And, yeah, fully deserved win. And, yeah, like I said, I don't think my heart thanked me in the end, but, yeah, really, really enjoyable performance. And like you said, it just makes everything seem a lot better.
Yeah, I actually thought we were okay first off. I mean, we had a couple of chances. We had the header off the line. We had the Strand Larson one-on-one. But this is the Premier League, and whether it's Ipswich Town or whether it's Man City, if you make a mistake and you concede a chance like that, you're going to concede a goal. The Lap's now spent like 12 goals this season.
Yeah,
no player's going to miss from there, and it was sloppy. But Dave, the one incident in the first half that I think the game needs a review on was the back pass, because I don't understand how. I understand the back pass rule completely, but it didn't deny a goal scoring opportunity. It denied a goal from cheating, from breaking the rules. Now, then I didn't know the rule is that you have to take the free kick on the 6-yard line. I didn't know that was a thing. And then secondly, I don't know how long it's been a rule. Maybe someone could tell me on the chat. I didn't know that. But he's done it on purpose. So surely then the rules would be, in the future, that should be a penalty or a booking at least, because it's blatant cheating. I mean, if that's an outfield player doing that, yeah, he's offered it's a red card. So what's the difference there?
Yeah, it's such a weird. The referee's bang on in terms of how he's refereed it, but like you said, the law needs looking at massive, because like you said, the goalkeeper's cocked up there and he's used his hand to keep it out. That he has denied a goal there. So for me, if I was a lawmaker, obviously there's one or two things: you either get a penalty there or the goalkeeper's sent off. For me, there's no. It's no different really to a goalkeeper coming off his line and handballing it on the edge of his area. You know, I think what Palmer did yesterday was much more serious and worse than that. He cocked up, he handballed it. So I don't know. And then because for me, the indirect free kick, and it's funny the amount of people saying, "Why didn't you just shoot first time?"
Because it's indirect, you
Yeah,
can't.
exactly. So, but I think that's so difficult to score from there. You've got
Yeah.
11 blokes stood right in front of the ball. As soon as you touch that, you've got 11 blokes running at it. It's so difficult to score. So, like you said, from him, like 2 minutes before stopping the ball illegally from being a definite goal and making it 1-1 to Wolves having a really difficult set piece to deal with.
Would have been better off having a free kick on the edge of the box. That would have
Yeah.
been a
Well, I used to think the rule was where the player passed from, but it's obviously where the goalkeeper handled it, I assume.
Well, it'd be on the line then, wouldn't it? Because
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe someone can. Here we go. Carl says in association football, the back pass rule prohibits goalkeepers from handling the ball. They'll be direct taken from them, required to use their feet.
Yeah.
Carl, any chance you could tell us if you know if there's something that Bailey been on the 6-yard line? Because I didn't understand if he's handled it literally on the line. What's happened there then? Because I don't understand that if there's a new rule in place. But the only thing, I mean, it's a slight criticism. It's not really a massive one. But I always think you should aim high there.
Yeah.
Because I don't see the point in placing it because you've got absolutely no chance. Aim high.
It's probably one of those things that you don't even practice in training because the chances of it happening are just... So, I mean, it's easy to say in hindsight now. If it was me, I'd probably have a guy stood right on the ball and then even maybe pass it slightly further back towards the edge of the box, just so you got a little bit more room to place it a bit higher, like you said. And I don't know what the rule would be if Agbadou just shot first time and it flicked off an Ipswich player and went in.
I think there has to be an intentional pass of the ball first.
Yeah.
I believe. I mean, I might be wrong. It's a long time since I'd looked at that, but I always thought as well just thunder it through. But I believe they have to make an effort because it's indirect.
I would agree with that. Very quickly for the people watching, that was my heart rate. Look, you can see that massive spike there. It was during the game. It's absolutely crazy, really. So
was that when I texted you, or was it this kickoff?
Weirdly, it says right. I don't know. I wish I could zoom in to see the exact time, but there's like an area where it says I was burning fat during the game.
Imagine being that stressed watching football.
I know.
Anyway, Dave, what you do during the game is your business anyway. This is episode 125 of the Wolves Report, joined by Dave Azzopardi, founder and host of Talking Wolves, and me, Ryan Lester, talking about Ipswich Town 1, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2. Moving on to the second half, Dave. As you mentioned then, it was like playing against 10 men. It was a totally dominant performance. The press was working. I think Ipswich were out of energy, and other than his goal, Agbadou completely bullied Delap, who was pushing people when they're off balance, nibbling people. I know he's a bit of a house, and that's fine, but I thought he was completely dominated in that game. But that second half, Wolves just set the tempo from start to finish. And I know Wolves were 1-0 down, Dave, but I have to say, I thought Wolves were completely deserved winners of that, despite being a goal down at half time.
Yeah, no, definitely. We're phenomenal in the second half. I mean, you just have to look at the match stats. Even if you didn't watch the game, you look at the match stats and you can see that Wolves completely dominated that match. Quickly going back to Delap, I agree with you. I think weirdly is such an inexperienced, you could say, player because he's a young player, not really played in the top flight before. He's very clever in what he does at times. Wins some soft free kicks and fouls. There's a couple of times where he just jumped into Semedo. Completely, no contact or touches by Nelson Semedo, and he with himself free kicks and fouls. And I think he will stick around in the Premier League. I know there probably will be some Wolves fans saying we should go for him, but I don't particularly think he'd be a good fit at Molineux, to be completely honest. No. But I suppose that's a different conversation. But yeah, it's interesting. I do wonder what impact it had with Vitor and his assistant watching it from higher up and having a completely different view of the game. I think it was Mikey Burrows when I was listening to part of the commentary. He said, I don't think he'll want to make a habit of that because I don't think any manager would like sitting and watching from the stands.
Well, that's why you get your band. There's definitely, you're going to feel disconnected. Even though you're there and you comms, you want to be on the touchline. Yeah,
but so I do wonder if that did help to a degree. But yeah, second half we were way better. Just like I said, I think Ipswich maybe the occasion got to them. But yeah, in terms of energy levels and everything, Wolves just looked way better, and it just felt like a matter of time. Again, you look at the stats leading up to the game; they hadn't kept a clean sheet at home in ages. Wednesday was their first league win of the year as well, so they hadn't made winning a habit at all. So I felt it was just a matter of time before Wolves got the goal. Once we got the first goal, I just felt we were going to go on to win the game anyway.
Yeah, it absolutely felt like that. Just going back a second, Carl, our in-house statistician, tells us offence occurs within the 6-yard box. The free kick is taken from the point in the 6-yard box at the closest where the offence occurred. That's what I thought, Carl. Thank you so much for clearing that up.
Right,
And
Ryan Perry also said, he says that if
there you
Agbadu's
go,
shot
that's
and
what I thought.
deflected, it would have counted. That's interesting, that is, because I think in the future that's what I would risk. But then you risk it just going straight in and it being disallowed. But I think that's probably
I
the
think
safest way.
you're better off just bludgeoning the ball and hoping. Because what's the likelihood if you're hitting it there to shoulder height, it's not going to take a knock? Surely that just makes sense. But hopefully we're in a situation like that again soon. Because I mean, it was more strange entertainment. I just don't think anyone knows what to do because, like you said, Dave, it's not something we practice. But Wolves dominated the second half. They were getting closer and closer, but the turning point in terms of quality was the introduction of Sarabia. Sarabia, again, that's very much a Marmite player, but I don't think anybody can question his quality. You don't have that many Spanish international caps. You don't play for PSG and teams like that. The guy is a wonderful footballer. Is he physically suited to the Premier League? Probably not. But when you've got a team pinned back, there is no better player to bring on to add his quality. His snapshot finish was fantastic, and then the little ball in. So for me, from that even amount of time coming on, Dave, probably Wolves man of the match.
Yeah, and interesting. I mean, I don't know if you may have heard this previously, Ryan, but how many games since the new year do you think Pablo Sarabia has played for Wolves?
I've got my mouth toes now. Oh,
or like a percentage of the games under Vitor?
Not many, mate. I don't know, 30%.
He's played every single game.
Has he really?
Yeah, he's the only one that I can't remember if he did was Tuesday against West Ham. So I don't know I can't remember if he came off the bench. But other than that, he's played for Vitor in every single game. Obviously not started. He's come off the bench.
Yeah, wow.
And that's why I think I think he will be going at the end of the season, but I think Vitor knows a quality footballer in there. I think even against Everton, when we drew 1-1 a few weeks ago, he came on and I think he had a really positive impact in the second half.
Yeah.
Because I remember there's lots of comments on social media like questioning what he did. And then a lot of people saying, hold on, he came on and added.
He was very good in the second half, yeah.
Exactly. So, but then I think he's capable of games like yesterday where he'll come on and if he's got the space to do what he can do best, you're not relying on him particularly to do all the running and all the chasing, but you can give him the ball to his feet. He'll make stuff happen. And he took his chance brilliantly well and he put it on a plate for Strand Larsen as well. He only played, half an hour, 35 minutes, 40 minutes if you couldn't stoppage time. But I think he'll, just because of what he did, I think he'd probably be man of the match for me yesterday. Just completely turned the game on his head. And it's a luxury to have players like that on the bench that you could come on and bring on and add that sort of quality, really.
Yeah, I just think that Wolves were slowly grinding Ipswich down. We had them pinned back. There was chances. Wolves could have been level before that. It was a really, really good performance. But just to bring on that sprinkling of class against a team that they're on the ropes and then you're ready to land the knockout blows. We're going to miss him for those opportunities. I don't think he's a starter, but you've got someone of that caliber that can come on. And I'm not going to say change the game. He just added the quality that was needed to finish the team that was in front of him. Talking about the goal, again, Agbadou involved. Lovely through ball over the top. The touch from Strand Larsen was fantastic. He's brought it down. He's fed Sarabia. He's not got the ball through, but that snatch shot, Dave, that instinct, keeper's not expecting it. It's a lovely finish.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And that is the quality, the technique, exactly. I think he's helped with a couple of the bodies right in front of the goalkeeper, which made it very late for the keeper to see it. It reminded me a little bit. I don't think it was the same goalkeeper, actually, because obviously he used to be at Albion, this keeper, of Neto's goal at West Brom. The way that because he had a couple of bites at it, Sarabia didn't quite get it down first time. Second time he hit it brilliantly, just right in the corner, so it's difficult for the goalkeeper to get a hold of. But I'm like I said earlier, I think once we got that goal, I was very confident we'd go on to win the football match. But I think even 1-1 in the position that we were in, we were really poor in the first half. I would have been satisfied with a draw. So even at 1-1, I was extremely happy when we got that goal. And that's probably where that spike on my heart rate came from. But yeah, well deserved. And I'm glad for Sarabia. He's not had the best of times here. But, I think everybody can see that he's a quality footballer and it'll be interesting to see. I think he will move on this summer just purely because of the wage that he's on. But be interesting to see if the situation changes between now and the end of the campaign.
Yeah, I think him and Nelson, because not because of the quality. I'd keep Nelson as well, but I think Pablo isn't far off our top earner behind Cunha now, and I think Nelson's probably third or fourth. So these guys into their 30s, massive wages. I can understand why we're releasing them. If I had to keep one, I'd keep Semedo, but I just don't think Wolves are going to do that when you've obviously got the Pedro Lima and Rodrigo coming through who are going to try and slot into those positions. Nice build-up for the winning goal again, Dave. There's a crossfield pass. Sarabia again just found himself in that position, and it's such a simple pass, but they made it look easy. I think he took it on the volley just across the goal. Again, Strand Larsen, he looked like a tumbling giraffe when he put that ball in, but it doesn't matter. He's a centre forward, and that's what he's there for. It was ugly. The away end went nuts, and it was a well-deserved goal to take the lead.
Yeah, right place at the right time. I think he was just slightly ahead of the ball, wasn't he? He sort of threw his body backwards to wrap around the ball to get it in. The one thing that I hate about this goal is VAR though, because I think everybody, the way he was looking back at the flag and everything was so tight. I think pre-VAR there, the linesman doesn't put his flag up, everyone goes absolutely mental. But I think we were just all. I think every single goal yesterday got checked by VAR in some capacity. But I just felt, yes, that goal, I thought, of all goals, what would be a winning goal? It'd be sod's law. So I just felt, even, watching at home, I just felt like, do I want to celebrate this, as much as I could have? And it deserved the celebration because we'd worked so hard to get ourselves back in the game and ultimately, secured our survival in the Premier League. But it was well deserved, and I'm so glad for Jurgen Strand Larsen. I mean, we've touched on it already, but a player that's you look at his numbers, non-penalty goals this season, he's up there with some of our best returns since we've come back into the Premier League. So I'm really happy for him. He had a lot of stick. I think not to plug our podcast, but on our podcast we spoke about it quite a lot.
It's all good.
No, we spoke about it quite a lot last few, and with JP as well. We broke down his individual stats and what he was doing, and a lot of what he was doing wasn't bad. He was doing good things, but like we mentioned earlier, he just wasn't having the service and the support around him. Now he's getting that, and he's scoring goals. I don't know if it's a change of tactics. I don't know if it's Menezes or, like you said earlier, I don't know if Steve Bull's giving him his old boots or something, and he's starting to put it in the back of the net now.
Yeah, I'm just delighted with the win, but it was the right sub at the right time to add that bit of quality under what was clear pressure they were putting them under. But it was a deserved win in the end. Again, a proper team performance. You are listening and watching episode 126 of the Wolves Report with founder and host of Talking Wolves, Dave Adepardi, myself, Ryan Lester. Let's go through the team, Dave. Give them some ratings, then we'll get into some questions. We'll start off with Jose Sarr. I don't really know what Jose Sarr had to do other than pick the ball out the net. Did he have to make any saves?
Not many. I think that Ipswich only had a couple of shots on target, obviously one of which would have been the goal. Can't quite remember the other one. I think his distribution at times was a little bit questionable, but that's maybe me just being very harsh. But I think if you're going to be, like I said, had very little to do, so probably like if we rate out of 10, like a 6.5, maybe 7 out of 10, maybe. Well, I don't know if he can go as high as 7 because he didn't really have to do anything. But
no,
yeah.
I don't think he did anything. His distribution was a little bit here and there at times. He's someone that I think we'll be looking at in the summer to potentially look and upgrade in terms of football. But if it meant getting 2 number 10s in the summer that could run with the ball and keeping him, I'd much rather keep him. I think we have bigger problems than Jose Sarr in the team. Yeah. But I'd agree, probably a 6.5 out of 10. Moving on to the back three, Wolves unchanged for the fourth game on the bounce. If anyone wants to comment, see the last time that happened, I do not remember. Matt Doherty, Agbadou and Totti. Much improved Totti performance, Dave. Obviously throwing his 1 in 4 stinker in the week, but Wolves still won and Wolves kept a clean sheet. But assured, not really challenged, did what he had to do and far more comfortable on the ball.
Yeah. Again, I just can't think of any particularly ropey points or bad points from Totti's performance. Like you said, I think he has just got every now and then one of those performances like he had at West Ham in him. But for every game like that, he has games like he had yesterday where I felt he was fairly solid. Ipswich, they have struggled this season, but I still think they can be a handful at times. I think the promising attackers like Delapson and Ciso tended to sort of target Dockside a little bit more at times, but I think Totti was pretty solid, to be fair. Again, I'd probably go around that 7-ish mark. Didn't do anything remarkable, but did his job properly. He didn't really make many errors.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to one of my favourite players recently, who I think is becoming fast the cult hero at Molineux, Emmanuel Agbadou. What a bloke, what a player. Seems like a lovely human, a man mountain, strong,
Yeah,
fast, deceptively aggressive, does it in a really smooth way. Get a lot of Willy Bolly vibes, but I actually think Abadou's going to be better than Willy Bolly.
yeah.
His distribution, the way he pings the ball forward, he's involved with the goal. Just obviously, I know Delap had the tapping, but for someone that's so physical and mobile, other than the tapping, I think he was managed very well.
Yeah, yeah. I think with Agbadou, what you've got there is like literally what Wolves fans would have labelled as like the perfect centre half in January. You want someone that's aggressive. You want someone that's going to be very difficult to beat in the duels. But then you also want someone that's composed, comfortable, and like you mentioned a couple of times this podcast, that's able to play a pass. And I think he ticks all those boxes. You can just see when he got injured how much of a loss that was to Wolves and how much of a worry that was. It's weird, like if you compare his injury to like Cunha's suspension, I think there was a lot more of a reaction to Agbadou's injury than there has been to Cunha's suspension. And I think that just shows how important he was. And there's no surprise ever since he's come back into the team. I think it was for the Everton game. We've just looked so much better. Yeah, I think he coped brilliantly yesterday. Again, I think you go 8, maybe even towards an 8.59 for yesterday, because maybe he could have tracked Liam Delap better for the goal. I don't know who if you're going to pin the blame on someone for not tracking it, who you'd pin it on. But other than that, he kept them completely quiet, and he was another really, really solid performance.
Absolutely. And my shout for captain next season as well. I know he's captain at his last club. I wouldn't be surprised and I'd be really happy. He seems like a really good bloke. And if you're talking about leading by example, there is no one leading by a better example. You could probably say Joe Gomez and Andre as well. But in terms of experience, being a captain at his previous club, I'd love Aggie as captain of the Wolverhampton Wanderers. Moving on to Matt Doherty, that came in a couple of months ago as an experimental right centre back. The experiment is now complete, and he looks good there. He looks somebody that is comfortable on the ball. Matt's always been deceptively good in the air, wins a fair amount of headers. Not the quickest player, but got a little bit about him when he gets up and going. I think he was hardly troubled at all again, was he?
Yeah, I think he dealt, like I said, I think Ciso and Liam Delap tended to come down that side a little bit more, and they both tended, him and Semedo dealt with that quite well. I think Matt Doherty's gone about his business extremely well. Not many complaints, probably not enough praise for him either. We're talking about next season, back three, and people are talking about, I was guilty of it as well, talking about Mascara coming in and being part of that back three. And then if not, you've got Nasser Giga, and then I'm thinking Matt Doherty's barely put a foot wrong since he's got that opportunity. I think he's probably had one bad game at right centre back since he
Forest.
playing that. Yeah, and I think he was really maybe Forest, and I think he was a bit flat-footed at Newcastle. But we had that spell there in Jan where we really struggled. But over the last few weeks, I think he's really stepped up. And again, for me, he looks towards that sort of 8 out of 10 mark, because very little went wrong for him yesterday.
Yeah, he came off yesterday and he was grimacing a bit as he left the pitch. So I don't know if he's picked up an injury or not. Hopefully not, because I think most of the players deserve to keep their place after the form they've been on at the moment. Let's get through this team, Dave. So I want to get some questions in as well, and certainly want to answer the one about Cunha. Tell me about the wing backs yesterday, Nelson Semedo and Ryan Ait-Nouri.
I think Ryan will be disappointed, I think, with the goal that we conceded. Obviously losing that header at the back post, but against Dara O'Shea, it's a difficult one. But I think the quality that they're both adding again, I think they dealt with the players that they had to deal with. And I think, you are praising the back five. I know we conceded, but overall, it was just a solid performance overall. Again, I'm probably going to go towards that sort of 8 out of 10 mark. It might be a bit lazy, but I just don't think they did anything particularly wrong, really.
Yeah, very, very solid professional performances, and didn't really. I mean, again, we could tear apart the goal, but again, it didn't really matter. Probably 7 out of 10 from both. For me, the strongest part of Wolves' team at the moment, the centre midfield. Whatever happened since the manager's come in, Andre is now fulfilling that potential. I mean, you say potential, he was already a Brazilian international. I don't know how much more potential you can get after that. And João Gomez, since signing his contract, now he started running with the ball. He's got the blonde do going on. Yeah. That's that engine room for Wolverhampton Wanderers looks like he could take on any team at the moment.
I think if we can keep that midfield 2 next season guaranteed, which I think we've got a pretty good chance of, I think you build the rest of the team around that now. I think under Vitor, they've got a really solid foundation, but those two are phenomenal. João Gomez is looking more and more confident every week. I think his ability on the ball is improving massively. We saw that against West Ham. I think we saw it again yesterday, him driving through, just looks so good. And again, I don't know if it's his new hairdo that's making him stand out a little bit more, but brilliant. And Andre, ever since he's been getting back, consistently back in the team, because he was in and out under Gary O'Neill, I watch him and I just think he's just a phenomenal footballer. He's so good. But again, for me yesterday, I thought they're both brilliant. So I think, again, you're going 8 to 8.5, could even creep a 9 for both, to be fair. But I thought João Gomez stood out. He's probably one of the better players on the pitch for me yesterday, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, Sarabia was the game changer, but you look at the midfield too, and Agbadou, and you're like, just mountains, all of them, and it just seems to be working. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. Moving on to, I would describe them as the 8/10s in terms of Jean-Ric Bellegarde and Marshall Monetzi. I'll start off with Marshall. Again, he did his work for the team. He pressed, he tracked. A quieter game from him, but he's doing his part. He's been in the side. Wolves have won 3 games on the bounce. You can't really complain. Bellegarde?
Quite a game for Bellegarde. I think over the last few weeks, he's really stepped up, and I'm glad, because again, a player that we didn't spend loads of money on, but we spent enough that we hadn't seen enough of him in a Wolves shirt. But again, since the turn of the year, he's really kicked on, and he's gone from someone who's going to be sort of a squad player on the fringes of the squad to the last few weeks being one of the first names on the team sheet. I think yesterday was one of his quieter games. I think he'll know that as well. There was one chance, I think, in the first half where he won the ball and drove forward and just did enough to get into the right area, but just didn't quite know what to do with it at the end of the chance. But yeah, one of his quieter games, unfortunately. So I think I'll probably go with it towards like a 6.5 for him.
But what I would say about them two, though, the work rate and the space they're both creating to allow Larson into those positions, whatever has happened, it's worked. I saw this team against Everton, and I was like, this is going to be quite bland. But slowly but surely, this team is actually playing some football as well now. I mean, it's not, but the efficiency off the ball and the teamwork is just off the chart. Moving on to Jørgen Strand Larsen, again, he's like a collapsing giraffe when he scored. I don't care. He's banging goals in. Ole, ole, ole. So it's, again, a player on form. Monetti's inclusion is giving, as Vitor said, it's giving him the space. It's another goal. So what can you say?
Yeah, I think, he's really stepped up. And
an assist as well. Going to give him the assist for that one as well, for the take out the sky and the pass back.
Yeah, the fault. I mean, he caused, he put the ball in that sort of direction, didn't he? But I would say probably an 8.5 to 9 for Jørgen. I'm just really happy. He's a player that obviously, wants to play for the club. He's excited to be in the Premier League. He's worked hard. Things haven't quite gone his way. Had a quiet spell in the middle of the season, but I think he's up for it now. And I think maybe add some healthy competition for him next season. I think there will be times where he's out injured or out of form. If you've got a backup striker, maybe to push him on a little bit more. But I think, a top performance from Strand Larsen, and I really hope he can add 3-4 more goals between now and the end of the season.
That'd be great.
And break some sort of goal scoring records for Wolves in the league, which would be nice.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, I just think because of the way he applies himself, and I think he works really hard. I just think we have to be careful, because I think the middle part of the season, you could see he looked like a tired player, and then he got the injury. To me, he looked like he needed a rest before then. Not because he wasn't scoring, because he just looked like a tired footballer. And if you play, I mean, I don't really understand the complexities of the red zone stuff, but he looked like someone that was tired, that needed giving like a week or two off. But he's found his form now. He's playing with a smile on his face. Yeah. So what we're giving him, 8.5, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. And going back to, I know Gary O'Neill, I don't know if it was the best practice to make it public knowledge, but he said he was really struggling to play over 60 minutes, and it was because of the intensity of the Premier League. So I don't know if that injury, even Norway allowing him more time to rest as well, has helped him, because all of a sudden...
Well, fair play to Norway. Thank you for that, yeah.
Yeah. He's playing the full 90, and he's still, towards the end of the games, even the game against West Ham, 92nd, 93rd minute, it looks like he's still got the energy to play. So, yes, it will take time for these players to adapt, but once they have adapted, they are proven to be very, very good purchases for Wolves.
Absolutely. That sees off the player reviews. Thank you to Dave for that. We're both happy. Wolves are going to stay in the Premier League next season. Who knows what will happen? There's one more comment on here that sort of takes me into the next little bit nicely. Chris Reed says, "Even lads, Andre is a 10 just for his celebration for the second goal." And it's funny you should mention that. Max Harris took a video in the away end. What a moment for Max, and what a moment for the Wolves fan base who loved it. Luckily, Max has let me share the video on the podcast. For those who are listening, unfortunately, you'll just get the noises and a little bit of foul language. But for those watching, enjoy the moment. Honestly, I'm a big critic, Dave, of people with their phones. I know it's a younger generational thing. Sometimes I'll get the end of a game. However, when that kind of thing happens, which is never, when a Premier League footballer, a Brazilian international, grabs your phone, you have to say, you know what, it was probably worth it. And I mean, it's hit across social media. Fair play to Max Harris for it. And Max, thank you so much for letting me share. Hopefully, Dave, I'm sure Dave will be sharing on his channel as well. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. We've got time now for a few questions before we move on to briefly previewing the Spurs game next weekend. Thomas, are you going to gloat without you saying Wolves would survive where Tyler Inoki said that we wouldn't? Thank you for your question, Tom. Sean asks, VP long-term deal, or are Fosun afraid of another Gary O'Neill-like situation and another massive payout? Great question. Dave?
I think they will be cautious. Obviously, Vitor was only given, an 18-month contract, so he's got another year to go. I think that they may creep into next season and waiting towards January before they give him a new contract. It's a difficult situation for Wolves because obviously under Gary, I think there still would have been a lot of people out there saying to give Gary a new deal, because you remember a lot of the noise last summer was him, being linked to the England job at the time. There were links with Manchester United and Liverpool. So I think Wolves were probably right to give Gary a new deal, maybe just not on the terms that they gave it to him on. So with Vitor now, it's a difficult situation because ultimately they don't want to be stung again. We know how quickly things can change in football. If it was me, I would probably wait until the new season, get towards January, see how Wolves are doing, and then December, January, that's when you give him the new deal. But obviously, from Vitor's point of view, he's obviously going to want the security that he's just helped keep this team up. So I don't know if they keep it on like an 18-month rolling thing. So this summer, or 18 to 24-month rolling thing, this summer, they may just give him a year extension. I don't know. But I think Wolves will be very cautious not to give someone, a four-year deal without proving. He's proved a lot to us so far, but you know how quick things can change with a full preseason behind him and how the club strengthens in the summer. So I think it's a bit too early to say right now. He's done his job. He's done a phenomenal job at that. But I from looking from Wolves' point of view, I think they'll be very cautious not to be burnt again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't really see the point of giving Gary O'Neill an extra year when he was already on a long contract anyway. But add that to the list of the crazy thing that Wolverhampton Wanderers done in the last few years anyway. Me personally, I think I'd be happy to put him on a fresh two-year deal. Yeah. That gives him some stability. That gives the fans are happy because we think he deserves that. And every season we could roll it on from that. Like Dave says, have a rolling contract. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to give him a brand new 2-year deal. Have a bit of a clear out in the summer and see where Vitor Wall can take us. Sean, thank you for being part of the latest Wolves report. I'll answer this next one. This is from Robert. Now that we are essentially safe, how long until Jeff will it take Jeff to release next season's ticket prices? Well, Robert, earlier on in the part of the season, Dave and I were part of a group with lots of stuff going forward, and somehow we managed to get Jeff. I can't take a lot of credit for this. I was just I put my name on the list and went along with it. I know there was a lot of guys that put a lot of effort into that, but we were asked to be part of it. And as far as I'm aware, Jeff's agreed to a freeze on season ticket prices, and he agreed to that last summer, Dave?
Last summer, but it was adult season ticket prices. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, obviously, if concessions or obviously the under-17s change, because they were. I mean, everyone knows, but and you were a part of it as well, Ryan. But everyone knows that the prices that they were quoting for children was just ridiculous.
Mm.
So adult ones meant to be frozen, but we'll wait and see. But I think very quickly away from season ticket prices. I know it's all happy days at the moment, but at the time, Ryan, we were talking about the situation of the chairman and Fosun in general. I still think, regardless of where Wolves finish this season, there still needs to be conversations to be had about the ownership, because I think this season is a massive wake-up call. You know, they've got lucky with the guy that they've brought in.
Well, this is the second time. They had to do it with Lopetegui.
Yeah,
We had to do
exactly.
it with Vitor. Eventually, there'll be one promoted team that's just a little bit too good. Now, and that could be any of the teams that come up. Because we did it when we came up. We finished 7th. You only need one good promoted team, and Wolves will be in big trouble if they don't change their
That's
philosophy.
what, for me, they need a wake-up call this summer. And I don't know. I'm hoping it doesn't get to the point where fans have got to tell them what to do. But I'm hoping they've already had that wake-up call on this summer, that they realise and start doing the right things again. You know, Victor's done a lot of hard work for them, even in terms of PR, like we mentioned right at the start, going out to places, getting fans back on side. Season ticket prices, I've no doubt the adults will stay the same. I think they'd be, with the quality of football and the results that we've seen on average across the season at Molineux, they'd be stupid for me to increase prices in other areas. But this is Fosun, so who knows?
Absolutely. Robert, thank you for being part of the latest show. I'm probably going to get one more question in, and then I want to talk about... We'll just do this one quickly. It's a bit of a funny one. Bobby says, now that Liam Keane has appeared on Football Focus, can we expect the same from Nocky? We can't even get Nocky to come on the Wolves Report, never mind Football Focus. But Bobby, thanks for being part of the show. Let's get one more in, shall we?
They asked me to do that Football Focus thing, but they said they wanted to do at Portman Road. I said, no. I wasn't going to go to the game. I'm not driving to Ipswich just to come on there. Sorry. So.
Oh, nice, mate. Well, at least you got asked. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Poor Liam's second choice today, but what you know what? That's big
Sorry,
Dave. Jeremy asks, is Agba pound for pound the best signing in recent years? Others get the glory, but the difference he has made at centre half is massive. I think the two biggest signings before were Mario Lemina and Craig Dawson. What they did in that survival season under Lopetegui was fantastic. Dawson was the dominant centre-half we didn't have. Mario was the midfield powerhouse, ball recoverer, clatterer, a bit of everything in there we needed. At the time, those two were phenomenal signings. I think Agbadou is going to prove to be a better signing than those. I know, obviously, things have gone a bit stale with those two that left now, but at the time, the job those two did was enormous. I think Agbadou, even as captain next year, can do some massive things for Wolves, Dave.
Yeah, no, I agree. He can really kick on, hopefully. I think I probably agree with those two signings. I was trying to think, is there anyone else out there? But I think, like he said, they're pound for pound. In terms of value for money, at the moment, he's looking like, he's worth that and he's doing the business. If he can build on that next season, like I said, I mentioned Andre João Gomes earlier. I think the rest of your defence, I think Totti may be in and out. Doc might be in and out next season. Your wing backs may well change, but I think Agbadou, whilst fit and available, he's going to be the heart of that back five or back four, however we play next season. So yeah, a phenomenal signing and a player not many Wolves fans would have known about before we'd signed him, and he's just been absolutely phenomenal. Yeah,
incredible footballer. The players that he's dominated already, just from his presence, I think his inclusion in the team gets the better of everyone else. There's a confidence, and I just loved how good he's deceptively good in the ball. The chip for Strand Larsen for the Wolves equaliser, and in the week the way he zipped the ball into Manetzi and it's fell for Strand Larsen. Yeah, Jeremy, as you can tell, I absolutely love him.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm hoping that we may well see a goal off him as well. I mean, because they're trusting him with these some sort of power shots at the moment. We saw it yesterday, but I think West Ham, he had a chance or like a free
kick, didn't he? That he zipped one over, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe between now and the end of the season,
the scenes when Aggie bags at Molineux is going to be absolutely phenomenal. That brings up the questions. The ends up the questions for this week. A week today, Dave, we take on Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs, who are going to be facing Frankfurt either side of us. So I think they play on Thursday at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and then away in Germany the following Thursday. So I know they won today against Southampton. Anyone beat Southampton, unfortunately, no disrespect. But their season lies upon those two games. How interested are Spurs going to be in coming to Molineux a week today?
It'll be interesting because I think ultimately they'll still want to win their league games, but like the European games is their only chance of getting back into Europe. And I think Postecoglou will be looking at that. The only chance he has a slim opportunity to keep in his job is if he keeps Spurs in Europe in some capacity and, wins a trophy. So I think he'll definitely prioritise those games. But also, if we can beat them next week, you look at the league table now, and I think, this is, we've not been above 17th place at all this season. From game week 1 to now, we've been 17th or lower. I'm looking up the table now. I'm thinking West Ham. I'm thinking Spurs, possibly even Manchester United if we have results go our way and we beat them. So I'm seeing next Sunday as a game that if we can win that game, all of a sudden we can start looking up the table. And I think a finish of 16th, 15th, 14th isn't out of the question. I think they've got good players, good quality players. I think, we gave him a good game. I feel like we probably should have, got a better result against them in the reverse fixture as well. But
I thought second half when Cunha went off, he just, again, that's not about Cunha, but he changed the dynamic and Doc nearly won it at the end. And I thought Wolves were excellent second half at Spurs.
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's every chance that we can get a result. And if Postecoglou is their squad is all over the place. There's no consistency with their squad. They've struggled with injuries for some part of the season as well, to be fair. But I think we've got every chance of winning that game. I think if you roll up that Spurs team, there's so much negativity in that club at the moment. If you roll them up or we get the first goal, I have full belief that we get 3 points. It's going to be a tough game regardless. They've got some great players, but hopefully we catch a tired and potentially rotated Spurs team.
Yeah, I just want that game. I don't want Spurs to get hammered on Thursday, and I don't want them to hammer them on Thursday. I want it to be 1-1. 1-1, 2-1.
A lot to play for, yeah.
Surely, even the players then, they know Spurs aren't going to get relegated. Then they can't finish in European places in the Premier League. It's all about that. I may be wrong, but hopefully their focus is on that and Wolves can take advantage. But even if it's not, Wolves are playing well enough at the moment to hurt Spurs because Wolves are organised and disciplined and balanced. Spurs are anything but organised, disciplined and balanced. Do Spurs have more quality man for man on the ball? They probably do in attacking areas. Are they using it properly? No. Wolves are playing very, very well at the moment. So, but Dave, and the big but, there is a big question. Apologies if I've missed anyone off the list. David, Paul and Cato ask, does Cunha start v Spurs? Now, I think more people message me individually, but I was only typing it up. I've been playing football with my kids today, so I do apologise for not getting everyone's name up there. But we're talking about one of the most informed players in the Premier League. He could have his own goal of the month competition. He's a magic footballer that drifts in and out of people. But how can you change a team, Dave, when you are winning and winning and winning? Wolves are unbeaten since his suspension. 1 draw, 3 wins. Second half against Ipswich was a complete performance. The first half against West Ham was a complete performance. I know some people are saying he's too good to drop, but surely you can't change a winning team.
I'm with you. I think I'd start him on the bench. You see how the first half goes. If you need to introduce him at half-time, great. If you need to introduce him 60 minutes in, great. But I think it would be incredibly harsh. He wouldn't drop Strand Larsen, but I think it'd be incredibly harsh to drop more than likely either Bellegarde or Manetzi. Look, there'll be people watching this podcast or people on social media on the catch-up or whatever that don't rate Manetzi. But I think Vitor's comments yesterday after the game made it pretty clear why he's been playing Manetzi, and he seems to be pretty satisfied with the project so far. And I think Bellegarde, yes, he was quieter against Ipswich, but I think, again, our player of the month recently, he's really, really kicked on, nominated for player of the month in March for Wolves as well. So for me, I don't think it would send the right message out if there's a player there that's clearly going to be leaving the club at the end of the season, being reintroduced straight away. We're pretty much safe now. If we were still fighting for points, and still
different circumstances then,
yeah, exactly that. So for me, I think it would send out the wrong message. It's obvious that he's probably one of the, if not the best player at this football club, individually, but as a team player, we've shown over the last few weeks we can cope without him. So for me, I would keep. And part of me thinks mentally for him, if he's got a point to prove, because if he's not starting, he might come on and we might see a better Matheus Cunha in that second half anyway. So yeah, for me, I would go and change. He's kept the consistency. We've won the games, so I'd keep it as it is.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same, and I've complained about Matheus Cunha a lot. I struggle to let it go about what happened at Bournemouth. He probably takes the penalty kick that Doc's taking. We're having a different conversation now. I just don't understand it. You're so close to the end. You're so close to penalties. I just don't understand the mentality. Clearly, he's a nice guy when he's done stuff with the community. Clearly, he's a fun guy, and the players like him. However, when you have moments like that, once you let it go, but twice in the season, it just doesn't sit well with me at all. And for that reason, on top of the results, I'm not changing the team. However, one other place maybe up for grabs, as we mentioned earlier on in the show, Doherty was sub late on. It didn't look tactical. It looked like Doherty was grimacing when he came off. If we have to replace Matt Doherty, what would be your solution?
It's difficult because I think he seemed to be trusting Bueno a little bit more than Nasajiga at the moment. But again, we go back to now we're not mathematically, but close to maybe being safe. I think maybe you start to bring players like Nasajiga in to have more of an opportunity. So yeah, it wouldn't support. If I had to pick, I'd probably say Giga, but that's probably me as a fan wanting to see what he can do a little bit more. But I think the safer option, just because he's played more football this season, I think against probably a tougher opposition in Spurs, Vitor may lean towards Bueno if Doc is obviously unavailable.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I mean, because I know he likes. I mean, Doc's technically a fullback. Does he drop Semedo back in there again? Start Rodrigo? I really liked Rodrigo when he came on. He looked like that kid has got some energy. I think he's a very, very high quality crosser of the ball. I think Strand Larsen will benefit from in the team. Again, I'm like you. We spent a decent amount of money on De Giga. I'd like to see him as well. Again, if he's trusting Santiago, again, either way, I'm happy to trust the manager. But is this an opportunity to have a look at Pedro Lima potentially for next season and put Nelson in there, looking at Rodrigo? There's opportunities, Dave, anyway. So either way, if Doc is out, I don't want him to be, because, as we mentioned, Doc's not had probably enough credit. He's been fantastic the last few weeks. Hopefully he's fit, but it's an interesting conundrum for the manager. We've gone 6 minutes into overtime, Dave. I'm going to have to pay you double time for this last 6 minutes. Let's move on to predictions for Wolverhampton Wanderers v Tottenham Hotspur. Your first scorer and prediction, please.
Ooh, I'm going to go with Marshall Manetzi, first goal scorer.
Get in there.
Wolves to win 2-1. And I think maybe not the Manetzi part. I still think there's goals for him between now and the end of the season, but I have full belief that we get the result. And like I say, I can see there's a world now, weirdly, where Wolves do climb up the table, and instead of being sat 17th or below that we have been for the last 31 game weeks, all of a sudden finishing sort of 14th, 15th. So I think we've got that momentum. The fixtures are looking fairly favourable. We've still got some tough games, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I'm just hoping that things go our way during the week with Spurs. You know, like you said, their Europa League
Keep that game close. Frankfurt are a good side though. So
yeah, I don't think either way it'll be a heavy result. So I think they'll have something to play for, and hopefully their minds are on that, and we can take full advantage of that. But even on our day, I think we give Spurs a really good game anyway, regardless of that.
Yeah, I do think, looking at Spurs, the Spurs side that went to Tamworth that weren't really interested, I don't think they'll be interested at Molineux. And because of that, I'm going to throw it out there, and I think Wolves will beat them 3-0. And I'm also going to go with Marshall Manetzi. You've got to believe, Dave, when Wolves keep winning like this, I act like a child. I can't help myself. I usually say 1-0 Mateus Cunha. I'm not doing that anymore. Our relationship is over. This has been episode 126 of the Wolves Report. Thank you so much to Dave Azzopardi, host and founder of Talking Wolves. I've been your host, Ryan Lester, of the Wolves.